If you tell me that you don't fight with your significant other, if you've been dating for more than a year, I'm sorry, but I don't trust you. I will never trust you. Because one, you're either lying, or two, you're a sociopath.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to today's podcast. My name is thebertsimon. In today's podcast, I want to talk about fighting in relationships. It's a very common discussion that I see on the internet, that I have in my own personal life, and I'd really like to hear your opinions, because when I think of fighting in a relationship, I think about my toxic years. When I was in my 20s, in bad relationships, we were argumentative, fighting, it was never harmonious. So when people say, oh, it's normal to fight in relationships, I sense a red flag.
And when y'all be talking about the argument stage, y'all don't say it's gonna be that bad. Like, okay, you think it's gonna be a couple arguments, call that the battlefield. Don't call it no argument stage. A pin could drop, me and this man arguing, beefing hard too, not little beef, not like no, like get the and this be like constantly, every day.
I personally see a red flag, but I want to hear from you because it is a contentious conversation on the internet, and I've seen it from all bubbles, all walks of life. Some people say it's perfectly normal to fight in a relationship, and other people say they never fight, but then what is a fight?
It's not if we fight that determines relationship success. It's how we fight.
In fact, our research has revealed that some fighting actually increases connection and even improves our sex life. So how do we fight right? We found that there were three major styles of fighting. Conflict avoiders, who just agree to disagree.
Conflict validators would bring up an issue by expressing their feelings calmly and then jumping immediately into problem solving. Then there were the conflict volatiles. They would express their feelings intensely and very passionately. Then they would leap into trying to prove that they were right. The couples who fight right will bring up the issue with what we call softened startup.
Softened startup consists of a bunch of I statements that describe you and not your partner at all. You start with what you feel, then you describe the situation at hand, and then what you do need from your partner to make things better, rather than what you resent. Ending this win-lose mentality and leading a couple to a compromise that honors both people's dreams.
So obviously we can think of a fight in a physical aspect, a verbal aspect, and of course just having an uncomfortable conversation. But I would argue that physical fighting and verbal fighting are toxic, and sitting in an uncomfortable conversation with someone you love in order to learn about each other or figure something out or solve a problem is less so a fight and more just uncomfortable. There are so many examples of fighting in relationships on TV shows, in media, in books, and I think for me it has been romanticized in media, this sort of back and forth fighting with your partner. And as I got older, as I went to therapy, as I worked on myself, as I understood myself better, I realized I don't want to be that person.
Stay with you. What for? Look at us. We're already fighting.
Well, that's what we do. We fight.
So on this channel, we do philosophy through pop culture. And so philosophically speaking, a big reason I found myself in my 20s fighting in relationships was because there was a deviation in our value differences. So I was dating people who just thought differently about the world or thought their contribution to the relationship was good enough when it was obviously causing issues. Example, I would work all day, and then when I come home, the partner who wasn't working, who was playing video games, wouldn't make dinner, wouldn't clean the house, wouldn't help me. And of course, it wasn't just about helping me, it was about helping us as a team. And because I would come home tired after a 7 to 7 shift as a nanny and then have to do another 4 or 5 hours of YouTube, it was disheartening. It was so exhausting to come home to no dinner. Apartment's a mess. I can't film. I have to clean first. And when I would say, like, why didn't you do anything all day? It was very much like, I was tired. You're the reason. You're stressing me out. It's a struggle for me. It was like very not adult in a lot of ways. But then what does it mean to be an adult relationship if adult relationships also say fighting is normal? So we know that it's not just a matter of being an aged adult. It's also a matter of being, I think, kind and wise and compassionate in your relationships.
Growing up, people used to always tell me that a sign of a healthy couple is that they never argue. And I was like, that's ridiculous. But then I realized the difference between a disagreement and an argument. A disagreement is inevitable, right? Because there's two different people with two different life experiences. You're gonna disagree at some point. But disagreements can be super, super productive too, especially when the individuals are willing to take the time to learn more more about themselves and each other and how they handle conflict. The issue is when it turns into an argument, because arguments are about being right and about winning the argument, and then it turns into like attacking each other's character and pointing out their flaws. Disagreements are about attacking the issue, and arguments about attacking each other.
And so for me, when I look back now, I can say that I fought verbally in my toxic 20s in those relationships, and it often came because we had a deviation of values. Versus in my 30s, now that I'm married and I'm permanently partnered, I think for us, we sit in uncomfortable conversations when we're problem solving because, well, transitioning is hard, we're neurodivergent, or / it's just uncomfortable to sit there and have to have a big, long, and deep and necessary discussion for something that in some other ways feels like we shouldn't even have to have this conversation. But I think the point is that if you're going to do life with somebody, even if you were single and doing life with yourself, you're going to have uncomfortable conversations. And so I don't think uncomfortable is bad, but I do think verbally yelling, degrading, insulting, physically fighting, attacking, all of those things, bad. So I think we need to make sure we put a line in the sand for sort of like acceptable, unacceptable.
I would normally make a video response directly to a comment, but I chose to screenshot this comment, black out the person's name, so I hopefully don't add more conflict to their plate. Because no, it is not healthy to argue that much with your partner in your marriage. There are two things that I want to speak to in terms of his opinion that he thinks that this is healthy. If you're a guy out there who fights with his wife often and thinks that it's normal, it's healthy to fight like this within our marriage, please listen up. First thought is, if they assume that this is a healthy way of going about having a relationship, is they probably have pretty poor models of what a relationship is supposed to look like and probably experience a lot of conflict within their home as a kid. There's a big difference between what is healthy and what is normal. His childhood experiences may have been that he saw a lot of conflict, so it feels normal to him, but is it healthy? No. Clearly, you're in tears. In that case, this just becomes an opportunity for that guy to unpack all of that so he can start to draw a line between what is normal and what is healthy so that he can start co-creating with you a better and healthy relationship. Second thing, it's really hard to try to convince you that something is healthy when there's evidence to the contrary. It's probably because they benefit from that thing in some way. There would be power, control, a sense of egoic win after an argument with you. There's some benefit that he might be experiencing from this dynamic where you guys are arguing a lot and he feels like it's normal and healthy. To this person and anyone else who's in a relationship where there's a lot of conflict and you assume that this is just normal, it's not. Lean in, address it, and attempt to unpack it with your partner. If they refuse to do that work with you, then they don't deserve to be in that relationship with you. Okay?
It's just so clear to me that there is a difference between a toxic and a healthy relationship. So as an example, my former relationship, maybe you could describe it as a guy who played video games at home. And that's why, it was the video games. That's why he was lazy. But the truth is that obviously I don't even subscribe to the concept of laziness. I think it's more or less some deviation in mental health, a lack of introspection, a lack of willingness to grow. And he happened to play video games, but it wasn't the video games because I'm married to somebody now who plays video games, and yet they are doing all of the things that is their quote job in the relationship dynamic. Because again, the difference here isn't the hobbies that we have. It's the way we are introspective, the way we, move through life, the way we agree to things and keep our promises. So when we fight with our partners, in many ways, I think we're sort of not keeping our promises to treat you the best, to love you the best, to dignify the relationship, to make sure that you are loved the way I love myself. Though, of course, if you have a bad relationship with yourself, you're going to take that out on your partner.
If I look at my partner and I wouldn't want to be them, if I wouldn't want to be just like them, then I probably shouldn't be with them. You shouldn't be spending that amount of time and putting that much love and connection and vulnerability into a person if you would be okay becoming them as a result.
Yeah. I think what Halsey is trying to say here, at least to me, is that your partner and who you choose to surround yourself with will impact the person you morph into. We want to be with healthy partnerships. We want to be healthy partners to our partners so we can make each other better, not worse. If you're in a relationship and you are doing worse in life, you should break up. If you're in a relationship and doing better in life, it's a sign that things are good, because in healthy situations, we grow, and in toxic ones, we become stagnant. It's not that when you're in a relationship, you will become your partner. It's that when you're in relationship, even friendships, to be honest, you are impacted and influenced by those around you. So make sure your environment is healthy, so it will help you maintain your healthy status as well. In an ideal healthy relationship, we're working to make each other better, not worse. When I think of unionship and partnership and love, I am trying to do something different than the typical. So if typical normal people tell me fighting is normal, I don't want to be normal.
You're such a dick! Every day I wake up and I hope you're dead.
Because when they say fighting, and I even use media to describe those fights, I just think to myself, I do not want this.
You do this every time. Harry might be happy it's time to sweep in and shit all over it.
No, look, I came here to tell you something. I made a mistake. You and I.
You and I, nothing!
I think of that infamous scene between Carrie and Big, or I guess there's many, but there's in the last season, basically before she goes to Paris, she's screaming and yelling at Big, so frustrated that he's back in her life. Every time Big and Carrie break up, it's like this great, big, crazy fight because it's all about the toxicity of the relationship.
Carrie, listen, it is different.
Oh, it's never different. It's 6 years of never being different.
Something I've really enjoyed lately is all of the podcasts that are sort of like revisiting Sex and the City and talking about how, as much as we admired these ladies, they were definitely not the best, even in terms of values, but their choices and partners were questionable for most of the show. There's this infamous episode of when Miranda is trying to go to a adult function because she's a lawyer and she has to take Steve with her, who's her partner, and Steve doesn't make enough money. So she's willing to buy the suit for him.
Don't worry. It's my treat.
What?
I invited you to this thing. I want to pay for the suit.
No way. You're not buying me a suit.
But he can't handle that. He can't handle the reality where like Miranda is buying a suit for him. So they get in a fight and they break up. And I think to myself, like, this is not partnership. Partnership is not making your partner feel bad for their success or making your partner feel bad because they're lacking. It's about helping each other be better. But I think when your ego is in the relationship more than you're in the relationship, you can't let go and be on a team with somebody, right? I mean, there's no I in team, as they say. So in that moment, Steve is an I. And Miranda's trying to be a we. But how are they going to do that? So the irony of them ending up together in the series, I'm sure to this day frustrates all of us because they were obviously so ill-matched. But ultimately, when you were watching TV shows and we can see how these conversations escalate to fights, we can see it's a deviation in values.
Important thing is she meant nothing to me.
And yet she was worth jeopardizing our relationship.
So I thought we were broken up.
We were on a break.
One of the more infamous scenes, and I'm really dating myself here with all these 90s references, but one of the most infamous scenes from Friends is when Rachel and Ross break up, but don't break up, and they have a fight. Fighting with your partner is an indication of a miscommunication, which leads to further damage. So the reason fighting in a relationship makes no sense to me is because it comes usually from a toxic place that leads to another toxic place. Now, what's the difference between fighting and sitting in an uncomfortable situation? Well, hopefully when you're working out at the gym and you're uncomfortable, you're still going to do those Bulgarian squats. Hopefully when you're studying for a test and you're uncomfortable because it's so difficult, you're still going to aim for that A. Hopefully when you work a job and it's uncomfortable, you're still ending up with a paycheck and a paid off home. And hopefully when you're sitting in an uncomfortable conversation with your partner, you're aiming towards a solution that will contribute to the longevity and health of the relationship. So when I sit in an uncomfortable conversation with my partner, it always makes us stronger by the end of it, and it leads to no doubts. So one of the defining factor differences between my dating in my 30s, my dating in my 20s, was basically the amount of doubt I had.
But for anybody who is in a toxic relationship and you're trying to find your way out of that toxic relationship, the reason why you stay in that dynamic is because you have a false sense of security in toxicity. And you need to find out the reason why you find this false sense of security.
I had a lot of doubt in my previous relationships, but I had a false sense of security that we would make it through because we loved each other. I was so confused. It felt like there were games being played. It was just such a confusing experience versus in my 30s, it's so reassuring. It's just so nice. So even if we're activated, because we're not perfect people, we're never taking it out on each other. We're never insulting each other. We're never trying to hurt each other. We're just trying to express, hey, I kind of feel like my feelings are hurt. Can we talk about it? Versus in a fight, you attack.
Do it!
Right? Like a fight is meant to attack. And the last person on the planet that I want to attack is my partner.
Empty, hollow shell of a woman. I mean, what the hell are you doing in my house if you hate me so much?
When I see these people on the internet, and they all come from different backgrounds, talk about fighting being normal in relationships, or sometimes you're really going to hate your spouse, I just think to myself, I would rather be single. And when I say I would rather be single, it's because I see my partner as an extension of myself, not literally like me, but I want to love my partner with the dignity that I want to show myself. If I can show dignity to myself, I'm going to need that from a partner, and I'm going to need to show it to a partner. Because I've gone to therapy and because I've done the work, I think I required of a partner to reach a certain level of introspection to make sure we're on the same page and we don't overpromise. So fighting is one of those value differences that I really recommend you talk about on a first date, because I think it's so normalized, hence the divorce rate and the toxicity in relationships, that we don't even think to question it. Fighting in a relationship, arguing in a relationship. There's a difference between disagreeing, having a tough conversation, sitting in an uncomfortable energy, but there is a difference between like fighting, yelling, throwing, smashing, hitting, demeaning, using foul language, like really getting ugly when you're communicating with the person you should love the most, kind of like the way you treat yourself, right? So that's what I'm trying to get at, is like, if I'm not going to talk that way to myself, why would I talk that way to my partner?
Every couple in a healthy relationship always has this rule, and it's no name calling and no cussing during fighting. One of the worst things you can do is get overly aggressive and overly passionate and say things that you don't actually mean when you allow name calling and cussing and getting too angry when you're fighting.
When I was toxic before therapy, I used to think bullying myself would help me motivate myself to get better. It never did. False positivity or like fake positivity also didn't help. You're beautiful, manifest. That never helped me either. You know what helped me? Grounded, focused, logical, reasonable, honest work. Really understanding myself, really understanding how my brain worked, like database, scientific based, and also valuing my emotions as like real experiences. Going to therapy, doing philosophical work, really being honest with myself. Guys, sit in a room and be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself, because the person who can deceive you the best is yourself. Why do you think I was in those toxic relationships in my 20s and I kept deceiving myself? He'll get better. He'll figure it out. One day I'm going to come home from a 12-hour shift and dinner will be made. Best trick I ever played on myself was convincing myself that the situation I was in wasn't as bad as it seemed. Even though, and this is the key part from my learned life lesson, is I remember distinctly a night like 3 a.m. in the morning, we're yelling at each other and we're verbally fighting. And of course it's over chores. It's over something like that. It was always over stuff like that. It was always over, why can't you help me? That was usually the conversation. I stopped and I looked at him and I said, hey, we're that couple. We're the couple that the neighbors are like, oh, they're fighting again. How embarrassing is that? How mortifying is that? I didn't grow up in this household. My parents didn't do this. This isn't my lifestyle. This isn't my people. What are we doing? This isn't the community I want to form. I don't want to live in a community where the neighbors are worried for each other because somebody's yelling at 3 a.m. Because that's the fear that happens. I don't know if you guys know this, but like, we're afraid for you. When I hear my neighbors yelling, I'm afraid for people. Domestic violence is so high. I am terrified something bad is happening to you. We're not talking about situations where people are passionately debating or passionately discussing. We're talking about inappropriate times of the day in which you are yelling and possibly using threatening language or demeaning language to a person that's supposed to be your loved one. You know, whether it's families or friends or romantic partners, we're terrified for you. We've normalized fighting and degrading language to such an extent that we have forgotten that we're fundamentally worried about you. We downplay abuse and toxicity because we're just so used to it. I mean, how many interviews do we have to see of women making excuses for the way men have put hands on them?
Just because I had a black eye once and he cheated on me means I should leave him forever and break up a family?
And how many people do we still see going to Chris Brown concerts to this day?
Can I please get a picture with you right now? Ooh, make my man jealous.
And that's because we have normalized fighting as just a part of relationships.
I like to support the woman, but we don't know. She could have been crazy as well. Like, women can actually hurt men as well.
The wrong actions were done by him, were not to me.
Have you not been in a toxic relationship? Sorry. Like, it's life.
To be clear.
Well, he still currently needs to go back to court in October over it. How do you generally feel about that?
Oh, as long as I say him right, I'm not bad.
Yeah. So are you aware of kind of his history and things like that?
Uh-huh. It was years and years and years and years ago.
So in this dynamic, it is very important we do not fight. Because if I'm fighting with a sibling and I'm like, I don't want to talk to you right now. Yeah, we don't do that as a unit. As a couple, we don't do that. I don't give myself the silent treatment. I'm not going to give them the silent treatment. We have normalized toxic relationships because we've seen them romanticized time and time again. 50 Shades of Grey did numbers for a reason, and it's because we all need therapy.
Christian Grey.
I'm Anastasia Steele.
It's one thing to see something as a fantasy, and it's another thing in any way to want it in real life. And the way we have so casually romanticized these relationships You know, the way we casually romanticize rich men taking advantage, stalking, and physically harassing us as romance is exactly why we have Epstein and Trump. And so I need you to understand there is a difference between you enjoying a fantasy that should never happen and you actually hoping that fantasy comes true. So again, when we see relationships, when we see celebrities, when we see interviews of people on the internet with their full chest saying, oh, do you want me to leave him even though what he hit me? What's the big deal? Yes, I want you to leave him if he hits you. Yes, I want you to leave her if she berates you and harasses you every day. If every time you come home, you're demeaning to each other and undignified. But this isn't about what I want. It's about what's good for you and your joy. And I want you to be a person that every time you think and talk about your relationship, you're excited, you're happy, you're joyful. Because I will tell you, the difference between my marriage now and my former relationships is for the same span of time that I was in those relationships to the same span of time I'm in this relationship, I've complained 0 times about my relationship to people versus in my former relationships, it was like an everyday call of issues I was having in my relationships. And so for Brittany, I know that I've grown. For Brittany, I have something to compare and say, look how happy I am. It's kind of like when you're friends, you call them, you're like, hey, how's your boyfriend, how's your girlfriend, how's your relationship? And all they do is complain. And then they wonder why you form a bad, opinion about their relationship. It's because every time you talk about it, all I hear is negative. Versus my relationship now, I have nothing negative to report. Otherwise, I would. And I know that might be hard for people to process, but I really think it's a reflection of the healing I have done to also connect with a person who's done the work, to also build something that we believe is dignified. We, one, never lie to each other. We're open and transparent. We do everything together, and we have the same values. We believe in the fundamental same realities, right? We don't believe in God. We believe we're evolved animals on a planet. We believe we form our own values. And so together we construct, because it's all a construct, an idea of how we want to exist in life, and we pursue it together. Let's talk about situations in which couples use the word fight, but don't necessarily mean toxically.
I've observed while listening to you two talk to one another that you both can easily argue and disagree, but are totally fine in regards to your relationship. My husband and I are the same way. We have different points of views on little things, but on the important things like parenting, money, big life things, we respect one another's opinions, communicate, and are always a team. That being said, when we are around other people and disagree, family or friends around us seem visibly uncomfortable. We are not screaming or tearing each other down, but simply communicating how we feel/think. However, our friends look so concerned that we're on the edge of divorce because of these conversations. I've even had a friend point out to me that she and her husband never fight. Have you ever observed these looks from people who care about you? Has anyone ever said anything to you about this? People give us opinions all the time, even on this fucking podcast. The amount of times that people have been like, oh, you guys hate each other, you're getting divorced, or oh, I had to stop tuning in because you guys yell at each other all the time. It's like, do you even know what a relationship is, a marriage is? Like, you have to be able to communicate and have these conversations with each other.
People say they never fight. I still don't believe them. So then one of you is just constantly just passive.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever the other person wants. Someone
is
seems
not
healthy.
happy in that relationship.
Yeah.
If you never fight, someone's not happy.
You're probably the couple who also just blast social media with how much you love your partner.
Right.
This video stands out to me for a couple of reasons. One, the person who wrote into them actually made some great points, so they work as a team with their partner. But what's interesting is their family friends are concerned. I tend to want to question their family and friends as well as themselves. Why are people concerned when you disagree? And maybe they are disagreeing in a way in public that makes people uncomfortable, or maybe the people they're around are just easily uncomfortable with conflict. What I think is interesting about the couple on this podcast, though, is the type of person they are thinking about when they think about people who say they don't fight in relationships. Like the couples who overshare and are gushy on social media, often behind the scenes are in pretty toxic relationships. Funny enough, as a content creator myself, I choose to keep my relationship offline as a way to keep it private and safe and to show dignity, but they are a duo together. So the way that they show compatibility and happiness is to create together. So it's a little bit of a difference here where if you're in a certain bubble, your relationship is never on the internet. And if you're in a different bubble, your relationship is always on the internet. Think about the differences between people who think posting your partner on Instagram matters and those who think it doesn't matter. Or think of the people who think it's a great sign that your partner doesn't have an Instagram versus people who think it's weird that you don't have social media. Ultimately, we can't make a one-size-fits-all rule, but you have to decide what bubble you're in and which action is considered healthy or unhealthy. unhealthy. Remember that you are working for the team, but not at the expense of yourself. And you are working for yourself, but not at the expense of the team. This is important because often in abusive relationships, you will have a situation where the person convinces you to sacrifice yourself for the relationship. Don't do that. Or in another version of a toxic relationship, maybe with an avoidant personality type, they'll fight for themselves over the relationship, and the relationship will always feel secondary. Actually, I think Big and Carrie were really good examples of this because Big was like this avoidant personality in which he would sacrifice the relationship for himself, and Carrie would sacrifice herself for the relationship constantly. So this back and forth, it's not going to be good, girls. You have to be in symbiosis. You have to be in conjunction with one another. You have to be a team. You have to match. You have to work. It has to make sense. And it's easy when it makes sense. It's really easy. And look, I know people are probably not going to believe me. I know everyone says, oh, just wait till you're married for 20 years. But I know plenty of people who've been married for 30 plus years, and they're not fighting. They're not yelling. The cops aren't being called. They're not getting physical. They're chilling. They're obviously each other's best friends. They're vibing. I want that to be my life. I want to grow old with somebody I trust, so much so that there's no reason to hide anything from them or to be afraid from them. From them. I don't want to be afraid of my partner is what I'm trying to say. I don't want to be afraid they're going to spend our money. I don't want to be afraid I'm going to come home to somebody, in my bed. I don't want to be with somebody that I'd be afraid to have kids with. I don't want to be with somebody that I couldn't even, share a space with. I want to come home to somebody that is a good person, like a really good person, not like a fake good person, but like a really good person. We're just so in our trauma that we forget you're allowed to be a good person who's with a good person. You're allowed to have a good relationship. You're allowed to want a healthy relationship.
People will consistently say, relationships are so hard. You have to work at them every day. I don't. My relationship's great. The only thing that's hard about relationships is finances, is like compromise when you're like getting the house and shit together and work and whatever. But if you like each other, it's not like you need to be with someone who is your friend. Because if you're not, like, it sucks. And that's what you're like, you don't like each other. Every day it's work. We've been together almost 8 years. I've had the time of my fucking life.
Over on my stream channel where I stream Monday through Friday, I'm also reviewing Queer Ultimatum and the dating shows like Love is Blind and Ultimatum. And I just want to remind people that those shows are exactly examples, perfect examples of toxic relationships, fighting, verbal insults. There was even an escalation to domestic violence in some of the seasons. So just remember that if you need a reminder of what a mismatched relationship looks like, watch these reality TV shows. If you want to know what toxicity looks like, watch, Love Island and all of these shows. Yes, it's fun for entertainment purposes, but these are real people's lives, and the toxicity is so obvious. And these shows make it to expose and amplify the toxicity where consent violations are happening casual. We cover this over on my stream channel. But remember that this didn't just happen out of nowhere. You didn't just fall from a coconut tree. You exist in all that came before you. This didn't happen in a vacuum. All of these people's learned behavior, everyone who's on these shows, even the type of person who would go on this show, that all stems from something. Why them and not you? Why wouldn't you go on this show? Why wouldn't you be in this relationship? Would you ever get on a podcast and say, oh, because my man hit me, what, I'm supposed to leave him? Is that something you would say? Oh, he cheated, but it was a mistake. You know how many Christian TikToks I see constantly of men who cheat on their wives, and women will say, oh, Christ made us stronger. We fought through it together. We went to counseling. We're stronger in our union.
22 years ago, Tommy cheated on me when we were dating. But I wear that as a badge of honor, not an open wound. Because what the enemy meant for destruction, God has used for good, the saving of many lives.
Those words used to carry shame, guilt, and regret. Now they carry redemption, healing, and power. Because that wound didn't stay a wound. It became a weapon against the enemy.
Absolutely not. So whether it's your patriarchal religions convincing you to stay in a relationship where you fight, or your friends who give you bad dating advice, don't listen to them. You are allowed to have a healthy, wonderful, joyful relationship in which you feel happy, in which you feel vibing, in which you feel safe. And then make sure, of course, before you even try to find it with another person, you find it with yourself. Because nothing better than dating a person who's good on their own. I swear some of the best relationships I have seen come out of people who've done the work prior, and maybe that's just because that's how my relationship also ended up, where I felt like both of us individually had done the work. So by the time we got together, it was smooth sailing, right? It doesn't mean we haven't sat in uncomfortable conversations. It just means they never escalated to a fight. It means it never got ugly. It always ended up productive. That's the difference. Be uncomfortable, but don't escalate to fighting. Face the truth. love each other through the process and be compassionate. You're allowed to want a healthy relationship. Start with yourself. And if you're lucky in this lifetime, you get to meet someone who wants to have that healthy relationship with you.
A lot of people say you're not in a real relationship unless you fight with your partner, and here's why I really don't think that's true. There is such a crucial difference when it comes to fighting in relationships versus disagreements in relationships. I was in a relationship where we fell into this habit of only communicating through our strongest emotions, crying, yelling, when we felt a type of way about something, when the other person had pissed us off, and that was fighting. But now I'm in a relationship I've been in for almost 4.5 years, and never once have we had what I would call a fight. And that doesn't mean that we haven't had disagreements or upset each other or just not seen eye to eye on things, but the way that we approach those conversations through a lens of patience and listening and communication, not needing to yell to get our points across, it's a completely different thing.
It's about letting go of that attachment to the outcome. I have to be married by 25. I have to be in a relationship. Because I tell you this right now, half the reasons you're fighting in your relationships is because you were desperate to get married in the first place. Half the reasons you're fighting in your relationships is because your great-great-grandma told you this is just what relationships are. You have a man you hate and a woman you're annoyed by, and you sit there and nag each other all day. We're done with that. We're done with it. We're over it. We're breaking that generational curse. We're stopping it right here with us. We're not doing it anymore because we don't have to.
That you don't fight with your significant other if you've been dating for more than a year. I'm sorry, but I don't trust you.
Tomorrow is the 5-year anniversary of me and my wife going on our first date together. And in the 5 years that we have known each other and been together, we have never fought. And the way that we have avoided fighting with each other is by when someone brings up something that is a valid point, we acknowledge our fault and work towards fixing it.
All right. With that said, please let me know what you guys think about fighting in the comment sections down below, because I know, again, it's a constant conversation. We're probably going to have it again in another year or so, but I just refuse to engage in a reality where fighting is a requirement for a relationship. I refuse to engage in a reality where fighting isn't toxic. And I'm just not trying to have a toxic relationship. I'm really not trying to have that. You know, it was never good for me in my 20s. And I'm look, you know what I mean? Like, you should have seen the stress on my face in my 20s when I was in those dynamics. I feel like I have literally gotten prettier the healthier I've gotten. And a big part of that was letting go of attachment to people who wouldn't grow. Letting go of myself, the version of myself that was also toxic enough to be in those relationships. Nothing is better than aging into your wisdom. Growing old is a great thing. And there's nothing better than knowing you are farther and farther away from your toxic days. I'll see you guys for the next one. Thank you for being here. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.